Hello, apa khabar semua? And welcome to the virtually Peranakan Fest 2021, keeping our spirit and our culture strong. My name is Alvin Un from Peranakan Sayang, and it's my pleasure to organize this festival for you and to be your host as well. Now, we hope that this annual 2-day non-stop online festival brings entertainment, knowledge, joy, and comfort in these challenging times to babas and nyonyas and those who love the culture around the world, as we all come together to celebrate all things Peranakan. Kamsialah semua datang sini sama-sama kita ya. Kita semua sama-sama happy, wahi sekali. Now, for the third program of day one, we will now go to Singapore to join Angeline Kong and Noreen Chan for some Manek memories Peranakan beading for modern times at Katong Antique House. But before that, we have my good friend who is now in Malacca, and he's joining us. Please welcome Baba Cedric. Hello, Baba.
Once again, kamsia very much, everybody. Baba, Alvin, thank you. Ayo, long time have not been to Katong Antique House. I want to take a peek inside. So, what perfect opportunity right now to actually see Nyonya Noreen and Nyonya Angeline in action.
Betul.
In Katong Antique House. Yeah.
Shall we go to Katong, Ba?
Definitely. Let's go.
Hey!
Yeah, but before we introduce, before we actually peek into that Katong Antique House, let me first introduce to you our two speakers for today, who's going to share with us something about Peranakan beading. Yeah. First of all, Nyonya Noreen Chan.
Chan.
We all know Noreen very good with masak-masak, but very few of us actually knew that she's a medical doctor with roots from Malacca and Singapore, and of course with ancestors buried in Bukit Cina and Bukit Brown lah. Yeah. So her interest in Peranakan culture includes her family heritage, including collecting all her family old photographs and stories, cooking, that's a number one craft, yeah, and of course other crafts. Her passion in perpetuating the Nyonya cuisine has enabled many readers to access her old family's recipes via the culinary-related articles that she has written for the Peranakan magazine in the past. Yeah, many. In fact, I actually pick up some of the old recipes from there. And now she immersed herself into the world of beading and has started the personalized shoe cover pictures. You know, she has already started sharing all this her own self-made Nyonya shoe cover in social media. Let's look out for some afterwards, yeah. And the other speaker today is Nyonya Angeline Kong, whose interest in needlework and other handicrafts hobbies spent for more than 40 years, 40 tahun. She's keen to transmit the beading know-how through her numerous Peranakan beading demos, workshop, classes in school, in Gunung Sayang Association, and the Straits Enclave. She prefers to use the chest glass beads in her beadwork and will share some information regarding this much sought after material, and all that later in this program. So let's bring on both of them onto the screen. Welcome Nyonya Noreen and Nyonya Angeline.
Hello everyone.
Hello Nyonya Angeline.
Hi. I'm excited to share more information regarding about beading today. So we are in Katong Antique House, and welcome to Katong Antique House again. Last year we had it here, but this time around we are going to share more about beading. Let's walk in.
Yes.
Wah, kita jalan-jalan
New experience. Gua dah lama tak pernah masuk, you know. It's just
ya.
Wow.
Wah, tengok ni.
Easily 5 years or more.
Wah, so long time ago.
Happy crowd, and hello to everyone. And Caroline.
Hanya Noreen.
Hi, Caroline.
Yes, Noreen's going to share about her beading and her journey about beading, as well as her collection from her mama. And she actually brought some of her beadwork. So maybe Noreen, you want to pick on this, Caroline? Yes.
I've been watching your shoe cover post, pictures in Facebook. So now I get to see it. Wow.
Hey, hello, Alvin. Hello, Cedric. Long time no see. Okay. So I'm going to share with you today my inspiration for why I got into beading. So actually, having grown up in a Peranakan household with my grandmother, I was always immersed in my culture. But I must confess, I did not start to be consciously about it and explore it until I was older, when I was over 30 years old, after I came back from overseas. Then I found out that there were beading classes that were being run by BBC. So back in the day, she had this small shop that was behind the Red House Bakery, in Katong area, and that's where I learned to bead. And after that, it opened a whole new world for me. Now, when my grandmother found out that I was becoming interested in beading, she became interested and started telling me more stories. And in fact, the first thing she did was she asked back. She had given away some of her spare beads to someone else and she asked them for it. She said, why? She said, because my granddaughter wants to sew. It's more important that she gets them and not you. So what I'm going to do now is to show you a little bit about what I have inherited from my grandmother and also how it has inspired my own beading craft today. So let's begin with the raw materials. You will see a little bit later on when Angie will show you some of the modern beads. But what I have here are Mama's old beads. So in true Peranakan style, we always keep all our barang-barang, our ketak-ketik, inside old mooncake boxes. I'm sure we all do it these days. And as you can see here, she arranged all her beads into different colors, different shapes. There's blue, there's pink, assorted colors. She also arranged them into what is known as Manek tanah. Tanah literally means beads to cover the ground, and in traditionally, we will call the background to the beads the ground or tanah. So when you sew the background, actually what you do is you tutup tanah or cover the ground. So these beads, which are all common colors, red, blue, green, are used purely for sewing the background. Then in addition to that, you need to sew what is known as the face or muka of the bead. So you can see here, this is my grandmother's handwriting. She has cut out all these pieces that you can use to trace onto the canvas in order to sew the shape of the beaded face that will eventually be sewn into the shoe. So you can see here that she has got different types of shape. Kasut bandung, the ordinary slipper, even the kasut cakiak, which is the flat piece that is like that. These literally are my grandmother's pieces, and you can see they are in excellent shape because Mama, as I would say, pandai simpan barang. She's not a hoarder. She's just very clever to keep things. She treasures things like that, and that is something that I hope that I have learned from her. So, as you can see, when we are finished, we must close the mooncake cover. So what will we do without mooncake things? I do not know. Okay. So let's move on then to how her slippers have actually inspired me. I have here some examples. If you look of her slipper and my slipper. So I think no need to tell you whose foot is whose. My grandma is very kecil boleh. Me, unfortunately, my feet are rather larger. I have to use up a lot of beads. So here is a very common pattern. I think those who have seen old beads and old shoes before will be very familiar with this cherry pattern and strawberry pattern. In fact, they were so popular that my grandmother sewed beads of, she used shoes of two different colors, blue as well as black background. What I did was I copied the exact same pattern, but I used a different background. Then, of course, you can see that my feet are rather bigger. Very similar to here again is another pattern. If I put old and new side by side, old, my grandma's, and new, mine. And I hope you can also notice that there's a difference in the beads that are being used. The beads of my grandmother's shoe are very small, very tiny, and they have a shiny kind of surface. This is very typical of the classic Manek potong or faceted beads. So you're probably wondering, how on earth did we transfer these patterns? Well, back in the day, 20 years ago, when I had rather more time, and I would use graph paper. I don't even know whether you can find graph paper nowadays. Nowadays, we use Excel. But in those days, we used graph paper. And what we would do is we would plot. So I would fold the shoe and literally bead by bead, color by color, I would plot onto graph paper.
And then I would use that to sew the shoe. So beads were not only used for sewing shoes. They were also used to sew other kinds of accessories for ladies. And here I have a couple of very treasured objects. This actually is a purse that belonged to my great-grandmother, my Mak Jo. You can see here again, these are very small beads, all very shiny pattern. There is, of course, you will consider that there was a design mistake now because the way that it was sewn, the person who had to make the purse would have to punch a hole right through the beaded pattern. And that would have been a waste, but there was no choice otherwise. But there would be front and back. So here you have these beautiful flowers. And then at the back, you have another pattern altogether. I also have another larger, but equally, if not more beautiful one that my grandmother made. And here again, you see there's a front pattern and a back pattern. What's more, if you open inside, and this I think illustrates very much the elegance and taste of Peranakan ladies, certainly of the older generation. You can see here that it was kept beautifully, even though this would have been at least 50 years old, probably even older than that. So in all the compartments, the zip still works. And if you want, there is a little mirror for you to touch up your makeup. So these are, to me, as I said, they are treasure objects. In fact, we call them tanda mata or heirlooms. So beyond that, what can we do? Well, this is my latest project. My latest project, I have gone back to using some spare old beads. And many people who have seen this pattern tell me, it's a very unusual pattern. It's not something that I have seen before. Certainly, it is very, very different from the cherry or strawberry pattern that you would normally see. Actually, this pattern is derived from an object that is known as the muka bantal, or the pillow face, or the bolster face. So what are these? So in the old days, in fact, even now, we all like to use bolsters when we sleep. What the Peranakans did was they would use beaded patterns to cover each bolster end, purely for decoration, for no other use whatsoever. And in fact, they even did very, very tiny ones. So these are tiny, tiny ones for baby pillows. So the baby bolster, which is probably only about this long, would have this at either end. So what I did was that I took a muka bantal that was larger than this, with a pattern like this, and then I transposed it to sew onto my shoe. Okay. So these are just some of the ways that some of us descendants have used the work of our ancestors to celebrate and carry on our culture. Okay, so I hope that has been interesting to you, but that was all in the past. Into the present day, and I'm going to pass back to my good friend Angie to carry on to talk about what is Peranakan beading like for modern ladies in the 21st century who are very, very beautiful. So over to you, Angie. But before we actually continue to go upstairs to share what is the modern beads are, maybe we can share about what Noreen's new project is. Okay. Thanks, Angie. So my new project is a pair of slippers and open toe sandal, I would say. I need to flip this around. Now, if you want to do Peranakan sewing or beading, one of the things you need to be able to do is to be able to look at things back to front and upside down. So here you can see this is the muka of face. So this is going to be an open toe sandal. But what is a little bit different this time round is that I've created a little cut-in to make it a little, maybe give it a modern twist. And you can also see here, if you pull back a little bit, you will notice a couple of things. I put left and right down here. And this is just to help me to remember which is the left side of the shoe and which is the right side of the shoe. Because it may not be very apparent, but actually the shoes should be mirror image. They should not be exact replicas of them left and right. They should actually be mirror image. And that mirror image extends to the direction of the beads. So the aficionados and the purists, when they look at a pair of shoes, they will look very closely, or like me, you must use your cermin mata to get close. to see whether the patterns are actually mirror image and to see whether the direction of the beads has actually been reversed left and right. If they have not, some of the more cerewet or fussy ones will go jahit tak betul. So that's what my grandmother's quality QC standards were always very high. So whenever I sew, actually I remember my grandmother. I imagine Mama looking over my shoulder and hoping that I'm doing well, or sometimes she will go tak betul. So wherever you are, Mama, I hope that you agree and approve of what we are doing, and to know that we are treasuring the culture and remembering. I remember you with every single stitch that I put in.
Oh, that's so sweet. Fantastic.
So I'm now going to hand back to Angie. She's going to take you upstairs into the 21st century to carry on the story of beading.
Oh, ba. We dapat upstairs.
Yes.
We're going upstairs, eh?
Yes.
Wah, pergi loteng, eh?
Yeah.
This time the tangga not so rickety as the previous time, yeah?
Take out my castle.
Ah.
Tengok semua
Wah.
sudah bikin baik. Oh, sudah repair. Dulu
So-
kau panjat
so cantik,
goyang,
eh?
seram kau.
Ah. After the renovation, looks wonderful, kan?
Very, very clean and
Yes.
very new looking, yeah?
Well organized, eh?
Yeah, so much. That used to be Baba Peter's room.
Ah, yeah.
Some of the collection back there.
Wow.
Wow.
So this has been arranged by Eric. Eric is actually overseeing this place, and I think he has done a fantastic job. On top of it, this is actually the beading gallery that will showcase all this bead stuff. And today, I have actually displayed some of my collections, and I will be sharing where we can get some of these current beads, which today we are using is Czech Republic beads, and also what actually inspired me into beading. Yep, and yes, these are some of the old Manek photo shoe. These are actually my mom's shoe, and this was actually my Tua Ipo shoe, and she actually passed it to my mom. And when I was a little girl, I used to play this shoe, especially this 7 dwarf one. I got a lot of scolding from her naturally, because I was peeling it. And I wanted to wear a pair of Katong Manek when I was getting married, but definitely was not able to do so because my grand auntie's feet was rather small, especially this one. So the cobbler was very smart. He actually retapak this portion and then extend it. Otherwise, I will not be able to wear this shoe. So this shoe is probably about 80 years old. Yep. Yes. And I'm giving workshop these days to share about my beading experience, as well as where I can collect all these beads, which is today considered as modern beads, as well as Czech Republic beads. These are actually as small as the vintage beads. The vintage beads is something like this size. You can see is how small it is, vintage beads. But these are not photo. Afterwards, I will show you more about the photo beads. Elvin, feel free to ask questions, and I'm most happy to answer the questions. And I will also be sharing on the on how we can get those beads in online these days.
Okay, let's have a question, shall we?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Ba?
Okay, Angeline, just to maybe I can fill you the first question. You showed me a pair of slippers just now with we call it the extension. Can you actually salvage it by adding new beads? I mean, finding similar beads and to add on to that old face, the old surface,
I think
rather
it's
than
possible.
adding that what we call it the leather instead, a matching leather to that.
When I first got this pair of shoes, I wasn't too familiar with how to go into beading. All I wanted is to get married in a traditional way, and it was only after 6 months after my wedding, then I managed to find a cobbler to retapak this shoe. So at that point of time, my understanding was only leather, but I believe if you are skillful enough, you are able to actually be able to extend it with your so-called available beads. But today I'm able to find this type of vintage beads so easily. So the current beads that we have is Czech Republic beads, and which I think is a good replacement to the old Manek Potong. At least it's helping us to move forward with our so-called bead works, and it's not a dying art. So when I started beading about almost 25 years ago or 24 years ago, like Noreen, I learned from BBC, and was, I think, her first few batch of students. Credit goes to her, very much so. Without her, I don't think so. We have the younger generation coming to know more about beading. Today, I am also sharing it on workshops on once a month basis with Straight and Clay. On top of it, I'm also giving hobby corners, and that was very much encouraged by our late Baba Peter Wee. And he was giving me all the thumbs up and smile when I told him that we should have a hobby corner so that friends will come together and get some inspiration and motivation. Like, you know, when you play mahjong with 4 people, you get some kind of inspiration. Like beading, you get more inspiration when you get to see your friends bead work. So that was one encouragement. So when I started 24 years ago, I started with this is not my work. This was actually purchased, but this is actually using the Japanese beads. Japanese beads has a different texture. So what happened is that I wasn't too comfortable with Japanese beads. So one day, I was telling myself before I sleep, and I said, it cannot be the whole world do not have any beads out there, you know. So and I was working in a chemical company, and I was very lucky that my ex-colleague in America actually asked me whether do we want to actually contribute an article about beading and promote the culture overseas. So I said, okay, why not? And fortunately, there was one colleague that came back to me in America and said that, hey, Angeline, I'm very, very interested in your work, and it's very interesting. Are you looking for beads? I said, yes, I am. And I said, why not you send some to me, and I will do a kind of comparison between the vintage beads as well as what you have. And so therefore, she actually sent me some vintage Czech Republic beads. At that point of time, Czech Republic beads was not known in the market as yet. But because I wasn't working, I was working, but I wasn't into any business or selling beads. So I have been collecting beads like this for almost like 24 years since I have found it. So each time I have wanted to keep it, and I said, okay. And this is very therapeutic because you can see the shine is as good as Manek Potong beads. So this is Manek Potong. Okay, this is the vintage beads. You can see this vintage beads is probably 100 years old, and compared to the Czech Republic beads, and when 20 over years ago, it was kind of challenging to go online to purchase. These days, it's so easy. You go online and you purchase it through a comfortable source, and you just type Czech Republic beads and what size is it? A lot of people ask, Angeline, is it the usual size? I said there are different sizes. So basically, in standard, we will use size 13. Okay, size 13 Czech Republic beads. It's also known as Charlotte beads as well as true cut beads. So go online and it's visible. On top of it, there is another size of beads that is size 15. Size 15 beads is this one, and it is quite similar to the size of Manek Potong. So I use sometimes if I do not have enough colors for my background, I will use the Czech Republic beads as my tanan, which is actually the background beads. And you can see the size is pretty similar. What is the difference between vintage beads as well as Czech Republic beads? Of course, when it comes to Czech Republic beads, there's only just one cut. And as for vintage beads, it has a better shine because it has about 2 to 3 cuts. So that's the difference. But I think moving forward again here is that we do have a substitute beads compared to what has been mentioned to me that this is a dying art and And I hope that by reviving this, having this monthly workshop, it actually will promote our culture and sharing to those people who are also interested about beading. Yep.
Angeline, we've got a question.
Yes.
This question is coming from Jessie Tan. Dia
Hello.
cakap, how long to learn basic kasut manik?
Wow, this is a very tough question. Okay, it takes about 3 to 4 months if you are disciplined enough to finish it, and making sure that you have focus and discipline to your time. But there are students who actually was so comfortable with first 2 lessons and excited with first 2 lessons. When it comes to the third one or even the fourth one, because of busy schedule, they will actually stop for probably 7 years. So I'm not. Yeah, there are students who actually stopped for 7 years, but they actually completed on the 8th year. So again here, on average, I would say it's about 3 to 4 months. It's a matter of your discipline. For myself, I would take about 3 months because I do have my work schedules. But I'm making a point that every day I will actually sew like half an hour at least to complete a small portion. And that
Right.
will be very, very helpful, because by setting your own set of target and goals, you will be able to complete by a certain time frame that you probably have achieved or wanted to achieve. I have students who will actually completed 4 pairs of shoes, 4 pairs in 6 months.
Wow.
And I'm like,
Oh,
wow.
that's a great achievement.
Yes. I'm very happy with that, and she is very independent now. She doesn't need to consult me. She is like on her own right now.
So discipline is very critical. Keep to your pacing and
Right.
always continuing and not stopping. How about the next question, Bah? Shall we ask her?
Yes. If you notice that many of your designs there are rather European in nature, hardly we can find any so-called Chinese-based figurines like phoenixes or peonies instead. So why is it so?
It's from Jane Koo.
Good question. Okay, if you actually take some of these samples here, okay, and basically they are actually coming from the Western influence, and what is the base of this Western influence is coming from is actually from the cross stitch. So cross stitch is very much a Western influence to the nonias. So when they actually use this, it's mainly all flowers, and some of it's actually bird. Like Noreen's one will have strawberries like this. So these are all old templates. In the early days, it's not like today where we actually go to the system and get the software and then we can do the plotting as well. But in the early days, no, they will actually use a cross-stitch cloth or their design, the inspiration through a cross-stitch, and they will actually convert it to beads, and then that's how they actually do it into beaded shoe later. Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, I hope I answered that question.
Yep.
Yeah, there's another question here. Sean Yo wanted to ask whether he got the terminology for the background of the surface of your kasut manik as tutup tanah. Is that right?
It's called panan. Panan is actually referring to background.
Background. Okay. So, and the actual pattern will be the muka.
The munga, that's right.
Okay. So these are the two terminologies that we all should know when it comes to the design of the kasut manik.
Okay, this is one of my latest project that which I'm in the pipeline of finishing, and hopefully in 2 weeks' time, I should be able to complete this. You notice that it shines quite a lot here because of the cut. So these are beads like vintage beads. I'm using all vintage beads. But how do I get all these vintage beads? So I want to share on these vintage beads a little bit more. If you go to some of the dealers or antique shop, you may actually find, or your mama or chocho may have some of these old antiques and in bottles. So I actually recycle them. Okay, so what I did is I washed them, dry them, and then after that I put it in a container like this, and then I will do softening up. So by having this quantity like this, you can see that I have many shades of blue in these plastics. Okay, so from there on, I actually converted into my beadwork. So I hope to, with these old beads, it also become a treasure and it's not a so-called being thrown away or into the dustbin, you know. I have actually some friends who wanted to throw away their beads and not knowing that these are actually treasures. So I took it and I said, hey, this is what happened. You can actually do a conversion, but there's a lot of effort and work. But ultimately, it's going to be very satisfying when you see a project that is completed. I'm actually inspired into this beading is because of this particular two shoes. And of course, that links to me in terms of my heritage and culture. So I hope more younger ladies or even guys who actually wanted to learn about beadwork should be able to come on to learn this culture as well as heritage. Yeah. So
yeah, Angeline, in order for you to share this culture, where can interested parties actually come to learn beading? Can they walk into Katong Antique House?
Katong Antique House, mainly what we have is Hobby Corner, and because of the COVID situation, we have stopped this Hobby Corner. It started more than 16 years ago when I was giving a training, and I shared with a lecturer of mine, and he actually said, okay, why not you have it at my cafe? And some of my students wanted to know more. So I actually had this hobby corner. So when Uncle Peter was around, I told him about this hobby corner. He said, okay, you can have it here. And I'm very happy to have it here, even though that he has passed on, that we are continuing his so-called reach of promoting the culture as well as beadwork.
We saw the 7 dwarfs popping up in the screen just now.
Yes.
Peeking.
Wow. Okay, let me share this. This was actually one of the shoes actually that inspired me because I would use to peel it. And so eventually I also
another one.
Another one. But this is the younger generation. This is the older generation.
Do you have 7 kasut manik for the 7 dwarfs?
No, I don't have.
Both using the same size beads?
No, the older one like this is actually Manek Potong. Yeah, this one is Manek Potong. This one is actually Czech Republic beads.
Slightly bigger than the Manek Potong.
You can see this one. Yes, slightly bigger. Yeah. And the one that here is actually goldfish. Yeah, goldfish is also Czech Republic beads. Yep.
So another question here. Let's say if the soles of the shoes gets worn out. So what can they be replaced? And if they can be replaced, where can we find the cobblers?
In Singapore, there are not many of these cobblers, unfortunately. Some of us would actually go to this old uncle to make our shoe retapak. And otherwise, sometimes we would actually go to Malacca to get it fixed. Yeah, but again here, there are not many people who actually knows how to go into this, redo this sole. So what happened is that when it comes to the sole of the shoe, the cobbler will put it onto a ladder, and then to sew it, and then of course put it into the preferred heels. Okay, the heels. So these are the heels that you may have to select. So not many in Singapore. I think there are only about 3 to 4. I think 3 of them left in Singapore.
When you tuck in the muka into the slippers, normally do you leave extra sort of margin? Let's say your feet get expanded, or suddenly your anak decided to wear your shoes, and then your shoes just get the sole requires to be the tapak. It requires to be resoled. So, any possibility of doing that?
I think from the very beginning you have to be decisive. Okay. Whether you're going to keep it for your future generation. If you're going to keep your future generation, you know that their feet is going to be slightly bigger than our mama and chocho time. Even my feet is bigger than my mama and chocho. Okay.
Bigger, everyone's taller.
Yeah, we eat a lot
Yes.
of
Cak ho liao, you know.
Cak ho liao,
Nutritious.
everything besar.
So basically, this one is actually a size 5. So, for example, if my niece, this is actually meant for my niece. So, if she has grown, I mean, her feet, she's now 12. So, basically, this is actually meant for her. And so, basically, what happened is that her feet is outgrown. There is some allowance that perhaps I can extend this into the beadwork later. That's the reason why I have not done the so-called the cobbler work yet. So she still has space to grow. So that's why we will give a little bit of allowance. But then when it comes to here, it's not visible. So unlikely that it will be extended in that sense. So we will actually add ladders or make some other solution to it.
Understood.
So we have a question.
Do you offer online
Jenny Yap.
classes, Angeline?
Yes, I do conduct classes at Street and Clay. It's a
Are they
Monday-
online?
Online.
Is it
No,
online
not
or?
online at the moment. Yes.
You should reconsider your decision.
Yeah, maybe workshop virtual, but at the moment, because sometimes you need to see it. But with my students, we do have WhatsApp and sharings. I'm very, very open with my students regarding about questions that they ask, and I want them to be more exposed to it because that's about learning and sharing. There's no point to keep it to ourselves, and then eventually, again, here it's going to be a lost art.
I suppose the question for asking for online is because not everybody lives within this region, whether it be Malacca or Singapore.
Yeah.
But they could be somewhere else. Maybe they're in Australia, could be in Europe, that kind of thing. So online helps.
Yes, I do have one student that is teaching. I'm teaching in Germany, and but I think for now it's just only one student. But moving forward, yes, they'll probably be on a virtual basis.
Next question. How do you clean your shoes, and can you maintain a shoe so that it can last longer?
When I started wearing my beaded shoe, my mom will always say, when you wear a pair of beaded shoe, you must always bring an extra pair of shoe or slippers, just in case it rains. Okay, so for me, I would never do that. So usually when I get home, I will use cotton to actually do the cleaning up. Yeah, so the cleaning up is in between or using some dry cottons, not too wet because it will actually damage it. So it takes a kind of actually a process as well.
How do you after wearing those slippers, how do you maintain the shape? Sometimes you can just cave in.
Okay, let me show you this one particular one. This is probably about 100 years old. Okay, this was actually by Nonia, and you can see her beaded shoe. What actually she did to maintain her beaded shoe for so long is actually, you can see this cushion is also very old. Okay, so this is actually how we actually maintain the shape of the shoe. On top of it, for us today, we actually have this cushion. We actually use this to support and put the shape all in order, like this. So more than 10 years ago, we had a project, and Noreen and our friends actually did a sewing for charity organization by selling this. So and I'm happy that we do have some more, and today I'm seeing more and more people are using this cushion as well.
The bantal, the pillow for the slippers. Yes. Do you wrap them after use, like what my grandmother did actually?
No, actually not. I put it in the cupboard, but my way of enjoying it is to see it. So if I wrap it, I would not be able to see it. Yeah, so I have a cabinet just for my shoe. So I enjoy looking at the colors, especially maybe after a day work and a hectic day. I enjoy looking at my piece.
Angeline, how can people find out?
Interest for your online classes, or for your classes, how much does it cost?
Wow, cost course, it all depends. Recently, I can't give an exact amount because yesterday or the day before when I went around to check on the frames, because most of my frames are actually custom made, and the price will actually jack up because currently it's on the COVID situation. There's a lot of materials that is actually on a price increase. So on average, I would say it's about 350 or 380. Some of the shops are actually charging it in this price, and of course they will add on a little bit here and there. More importantly,
I love the pop-up Manek that keeps appearing on screen. Fantastic.
That 380 would be basically for the materials plus lessons. How many lessons would that be?
Usually about 4 to 5. Sometimes they may extend to 6 or 7. It again here about individual discipline. On average, it's about 4 lessons.
Okay.
So the question is it called red enclave? I think it's very clear. It's actually straight
Enclave.
enclave. And one of the cobblers that Noreen shared is Juliana Tan. For Juliana Tan's question, Mr. Sung of Kwek Chung Shoemaker at Beach Road, Golden Mile Tower. So that's one of them that you can actually go and find. Yeah. Angeline?
Yes. For most of our big stuff is actually we go to Mr. Sung to get it done. And I do have friends who actually have it done with our Malacca friends, like Peranakan Heritage. So basically, I think there are other two also, but I have not tried. So basically, I'm comfortable with Mr. Sung.
Okay. All right. I think, is there anything else you'd like to share with us, because we've got to wrap up the program?
Yes, I thought that we go down and say, let the rest also say goodbye to everyone.
Okay, let's take a walk downstairs. Wow. For those of you who've never been into the Katong Antique House, this is a real treat, isn't it?
Wow, we even have an attic right now, do we? Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow, it has been ages.
Yes. Thank you for sharing. This is beautiful, isn't it?
So ladies and gentlemen, ada tempo kat Singapore. If you have the time, please do drop by Katong Antique House. I think it's all by appointment. Please contact Nyonya Angeline, or Baba Eric. And now we are back downstairs.
All right. Thank you,
everybody. Thank you for sharing your lovely craft work with us.
Fantastic.
Very highly inspirational, actually. Very inspiring.
Yeah. Okay, Ba.
Yes,
let's wrap up.
Thank you. Kamsia nyonya semua. Kamsia. And with that, we come to the end of our beading demonstration and sharing session. And also, I'm going to hand back this session now to our lovely host, Baba Alvin.
Kamsia Ba. We've come to the end of this program. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us in this show. Thank you for all your comments as well. And do join us for the next presentation at 4 p.m. We are going to the Baba and Nyonya Heritage Museum with Lee Yuan Tian. There's going to talk about the Chimche, the airwell of Peranakan homes. So that's going to happen in a very short while. So do join us there. Thank you very much for joining us here at the Virtually Peranakan Fest 2021. Let's keep our culture and our spirit strong. Take care, everybody. Kamsiala.